gosh, I think this is a really co-piloty group, but I think that we
Nice.
might, we might
Claude, yeah. Claude's developed a thing called co-work now, which is even quite interesting.
There we go. So just, I would say daily things are changing.
Yeah.
So again, a very big welcome to everyone. It's exciting that we've got such a strong cohort of people here today to just have a look, share ideas. As I say, I don't think anyone has the absolute answer to everything, but I think we can gain so much from learning from each other's experiences. And we are also very fortunate to have our guest here today, who's David Ferns. He is very hands-on. He's in fact one of our senior trainers in teaching people how to use Excel and Copilot and making the most of this AI as a wonderful assistant and a way of generating different output and probably more efficient, I hope, David, more efficient and effective way of doing it. So I
Indeed.
look forward to answering some questions and having you answer some questions in a while. So just to let you know that MCI acknowledges that the lands and waters of the country meet on today have been in the care of traditional custodians for thousands of years. We pay respects to the elders of local people, past and present, and to emerging leaders. MCI acknowledges and extends respect to people from all the cultures and diverse identities who walk on this country. And that's always a meaningful start to the session for me. So, focus today, you're all here, you want to know more about the adoption of AI. Because talking about AI, I think in generic theoretical terms is one thing, and that was probably last year's discussion. This year, the shift is, well, now, how do we get this going in our organization? How do we use and encourage people to use it with great confidence? And also bearing in mind the risk, the guardrails that need to be around how do we make sure that we use this in a productive way, not just as maybe a burden to people or making people feel sort of very insecure about it. So that's going to be our focus. We're going to try to keep it as practical as possible. Please, I encourage you to put your comments into chat. Please put questions in. I've set up a few questions, but we will definitely open the floor. And even as we go along, we'll be looking at the comments, and also please put in your questions. We're here. If we need to stay on a little bit longer to help answer the questions, we're very happy to do that. So I'd like you to get into chat immediately, and not chat GPT, but the Teams chat, let's say. And I'd be interested to hear where you would position your organization. Would you say that it's curious stage one, a little bit of a cautious pilot is happening, a bit inconsistent use? Would you say there's full on, it's like really guided stage three? Is it governance in place? There's a policy? Or is it like totally embedded into workflow? And it would be interesting to hear. Okay, we're seeing a whole range of different answers here. My goodness, ranging. I haven't seen anyone at 1. Okay, so there we go. We're certainly seeing a few at 4, 2.5. Thanks, Liz. That's a cautious answer. I don't know if, David, how you'd sum that up. Somebody maybe here could be the maths person, but I'd say
Yeah.
probably 2 to 3 looks about the most popular. So I'm saying 3 to 4,
Yeah. Yes. Some
which is,
departments might have more advanced use of it than others,
yeah,
probably. Yeah.
yeah. So there's certainly a mix, I'd say, a strong mix. But my question and what we want to explore today is how could we use AI, as more of a learning challenge, not just as a technology implementation. And I think, and I'm sure some of you in this particular session are very much on the IT side, which is great. And please, we definitely want you here as well, because I think it's two sides to everything. And part of this adoption, I believe, and I'm open to correction, and please give your own comments comments into the chat that this is more than just a software rollout, that if we don't have some of the training to back it up, unless there is some of the behavior change, how are we going to then shift from just using the AI to working with the AI? And that's what I'm interested in learning more about. And I see somebody made a comment already about how this maybe even needs a change manager. And Christy saying it's business transformation. And I love that word. So David, over to you, and we will get a little bit practical. I know later you're going to share your screen and just give a few examples of the magic of AI within Excel. But from your perspective, what do you think AI adoption means for just everyday use in organizations?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Denise. I think a lot of people think it's technical change, new technology, but like installing a computer. But really, it's more about how work gets done and which part of those jobs can be done by AI in augmenting or working along with people in the workforce. I think a lot of concern that maybe AI is replacing things. But really, from an adoption perspective, it's about companies bringing in technology that's going to make work life a lot better and perhaps a bit more effective and efficient for ones in the workplace.
Okay, so carrying on from that particular theme, and please, reiterating, guys, these are just some questions that we thought of initially. Please add more and more questions as we go in. If we don't see them immediately, we will come back to them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at organizations, and I know that you've been working with organizations in a more hands-on way, not like me just kind of directing it from a consulting perspective, what are you noticing? What are you seeing in terms of organization? What's holding them back? What are the kind of blockers? Because you're saying, yes, it can have this marvelous effect and be productive and efficiency, but what's holding them back at the moment? Sort of
Yeah,
for the
that's a
people
very
who have
good.
the 2s and the 3s that were mentioned earlier.
Indeed, indeed. I was actually going to put it to the audience. What do you think the myths might be? Would be lovely to see a few comments there because I think there's a lot of sort of misunderstanding out there about AI. I agree with what Lisa was saying. It's going to steal your data. Another one is going to replace your job. Actually, Liz just said what I was about to say. It's a bit of an IT thing. It's got really nothing to do with my role or the fact that the organization needs to be, involved in some technical rollout that's just going to leave most people out of touch with what's happening. I think the real blockers, and I don't know if you already noticed that in your own workforce, is that perhaps people are afraid maybe of how it will impact the organization. Lawrence made a very good comment. Different people are on different licenses, which means that they've been held back because they don't have full functionality. There's low confidence in what they can do with AI. They don't feel they maybe have the skills. They're also unclear as to what the rules and policies are. And that's really holding people back. And even decision makers, they're saying, we don't really know whether our organization is set up to have AI as part of it yet, because we don't know what our boundaries are. So those are some of the things that are just holding companies and individuals back from using AI. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and if people have a look in the chat, you'll see many of the other myths that are circling around there, David. I think one of them is that, well, we all going to become stupid because the AI will do everything for us.
Yeah.
I've heard that one quite a few times.
Yeah. Fair
It's,
enough. Yeah.
and
No, indeed.
it will steal our data. Certainly comes up as well if you see where the resistors are in some organizations. But
Yeah.
obviously, once we've identified that there are some of these blockers, what do some of the organizations that are moving forward, that are saying, okay, let's get on with this. This is part of, we can't stick our heads in the sand. What are these early adopters gaining versus the people who are kind of delaying a little bit more because of the uncertainty and the various myths that we've just mentioned?
Yeah, I think people are holding back primarily out of fear and also the desire not to change. And they're saying, oh, it makes strategic sense to hold off. Well, interestingly, I did some research on it and they found that Australia is one of the slowest adopters of AI in the world at the moment. They're actually about only 30% in comparison to some other countries. So at this point in 2026, with the way things are changing, I suppose the risk of falling behind, losing productivity, increasing efficiency are probably the main questions that people are asking. So the better question to ask is not whether adopting AI is a good decision or makes strategic sense, but when will we do it? When will we make that adjustment? I know there's things such as risk that people are weighing up, uh, whether it's going to add value to their organization, whether they have the infrastructure for it. But at some point, organizations will start to fall behind quite dramatically as other organizations that have AI are utilizing it to improve the entire effectiveness of the organization. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm on board with that, and I'd be interested to hear from the people in the group who give us a thumbs up if you agree with that, or if you've got some further comments as well. But when you think about the rollout in more practical terms, we've zoomed out a little bit, but if we zoom in a bit, well, what is a sequence for a rollout? What is best to do first? Must we write a policy? Must we buy a license? Like, where do you begin even?
Yeah, look, it's a very good question. I think what's happening is a lot of people are getting into AI quickly, and there's a thing called shadow AI, which means that people are saying, I can't wait for my organization to catch up to my work needs, so I'm going to start using AI on my own. So the best first step is for the organization's leadership to sit down and work out a rollout strategy, to talk about how AI can align with the organization's leadership, with the way the organization will use AI. And then once they've got that message clear, then they can then take the next step, maybe set up some simple rules, maybe then just implement some AI technology like Copilot, which is highly secure for low risk everyday work. Then this is important. This is where MCI might come into it, some training to become more effective at the use of those tools. And then once everyone is comfortable with that, then perhaps expand that to maybe higher risk tasks, things that require maybe very in-depth research that requires accuracy. And then once that happens, it becomes part of the workflow. So maybe I can just find out from our audience, do you feel that your organization is starting to implement AI in that particular way? Were you feeling confident in those, um, but perhaps in the rollout of
Yeah,
perhaps
it
Copilot
would be
AI?
interesting to hear that. I see somebody said, well, a lot has to happen concurrently. Absolutely. Otherwise, you'll be here till the next decade and the world will
Yes.
have spun around a few times. But it would be interesting to hear from other people of sort of how it's worked in a sense in your particular situation so that others in the group can learn from your maybe, and I hope positive experience, but maybe some bitter experience. So, you know, David, just to start with, I mean, how do you find the right use case? Just so that people can see that there is value, you building up some speed with these early adopters and trying to minimize the resistance. Is there a way of doing this?
Um, I suppose the best answer is find the most annoying jobs and see if you can get AI to do it. I know for myself, there's a lot of work that I need to do that requires, like, it's tedious, and AI could certainly save me time. But then perhaps as an organization, maybe prioritize low risk, high volume work would be a good use case to test out AI, make sure it's really like helping us to do our job better. But then other things could be maybe just to, check with your team members, like what would they use, perhaps Copilot for or ChatGPT for, and then maybe going forward, perhaps a survey. So what are the work needs and where do you think it could fit into your role in the workplace? And then once you've got that, then just start with those tasks and then start to go into perhaps more in-depth cases that they could use it for. So.
Okay, it sounds, when you're talking about it, it sounds pretty straightforward. But as we know, these things don't always work that way when it comes to some sort of change management. And there,
Okay.
Lauren, Grace are giving some really good examples. So everyone, please keep your eye on chat. We're really sharing some very good situations and scenarios from people in this group. So
Yeah.
what are the sort of warning signs that go ding, 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 this is becoming too much of a tech project and not enough of a behavior change project? What could we look out for?
Okay. Well, if maybe you're getting your first point of contact with AI is Bob, the IT guy, then perhaps it's not been rolled out properly. So sometimes what happens is companies just start getting licenses and assigning them. And I agree with what Grace was saying. She said, I find people just aren't sure what it does beyond basic chats. So there's a skills shortage there. So what the organization needs to do is they need to perhaps provide some guidelines first before IT gets involved. Because what ends up happening is then everyone at work says, well, I think it's an IT thing and I don't think I want to get involved in using it, especially when you get the fear of, well, it might make mistakes when it generates a report. Well, nobody wants to make a mistake. So essentially, the rollout needs to come from the leadership, and it needs to be done with positive reinforcement and education, and then just start with those low-level tasks. I like what Lauren said there. She said she just start with basic Copilot access, and then just slowly working
Build
up
up.
in your skills and use of Copilot. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if people here in the group had to say anything, what type of training do you think people need first? Is it training in prompting? Is it then, making judgments? Because we do know that it hallucinates less than it used to, but it still does hallucinate. Is it checking and verification skills? Is it skills in workflow redesign where we need to work as a group? I'd be interested to hear in what people from in the chat are saying about that. And
Okay.
certainly, again, we're hearing some very interesting commentary there. I hope we can print out all these comments because they're
Indeed.
certainly very innovative. But I think what this slide is saying to me is that you need a basket of skills. It's not just
Exactly.
one type of skill. I don't know necessarily which one comes first, but you do
Okay.
need to have a whole range of these types of skills. And, how do we ensure that people aren't all nervous? Oh, this is too much for me. This is too new. I've got so much on my plate. Why do I need to worry with something else? Any tips
Yeah.
for overcoming that type of attitude?
Okay, so coming back to the previous slide, I guess ones don't know whether they are actually using AI properly unless they learn the basics like effective prompting. That's really critical. Then comes the judgment part, verifying the information. So what needs to happen in the workplace is to set a tone that reduces anxiety. The idea that if you send this report, you could lose your job kind of approach is not the way to approach AI. There are hallucinations, but with effective prompting and especially Copilot, Copilot uses a thing called grounding, which allows you to go into your own data and focuses only on your own data so that you can actually deliver very accurate reports, emails, whatever you need to do. And then once you've done that, just like teach practical core skills. Coming back, as I mentioned, Lisa mentioned it as well. Effective prompting, but then also using things like multi-turn refinement to clarify what your intent is with Copilot. Then just like practice with files. Make sure that the feedback that you're getting is your standard, or to the organization standard. And then once that's done, in a training course, especially if you are providing training, you're going to get some students that are fast learners. They've been around Copilot or AI for a while. There's others that are new. So maybe just set some additional exercises to just challenge them, but then make sure that everyone benefits from that training by keeping everyone together as well. So.
Yeah. Very, very good point there as well. So I'm going to hand over to you, David, because I know that you're going to share your screen. And if you can, for the next few minutes, just give us some idea of how you do some of this training within Copilot and what, I know you don't like to call it magic, but when I look at it, I find it quite magical.
No,
So if
that's
you'd
fair
like to
enough.
share your screen
Yeah, no,
and
indeed,
go
indeed. So,
in you go.
okay, indeed. So guys, I'm just going to do a couple of examples in Excel. So I don't know if you have a preferred application. So please feel free to post that. It'd be good to hear your feedback on which part of Microsoft 365 apps suit best with what you're using Copilot for. So I'll just open up a file. Well, I'm just going to open up. I'll just bring this up here. And I'll just leave that there. So guys, what I've done is I'm in my Copilot chat screen, which I'm going to be using for just a couple of examples. If you are new to Copilot and you do have a paid subscription, you'll notice that you'll have two options. One's called Work, the other one's called Web. So what Work does is Work allows you to really go into your data or into the files that you have in your organization. This generates information more so from the web. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload a file, and I'm just going to run just a couple of prompts with this one. And then you'll notice also if you're in Work, you could also go // that'll give you a lot of your tools. But I'm just going to upload this file. And I'm just going to get it from my practice folder. Just marketing. So essentially marketing is just our marketing sales. And just to show you guys what it is, essentially it's just our marketing costs over the last 4 years. And so what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to do something that allows me to just get a report that I can use that will allow me to perhaps maybe write a report or know exactly what's going on with our sales. So I might just start with the first one. So here's a question you could ask of your data, especially if you're a marketing person. So I'll just close that. I'm just going to paste it in there. So maybe the question, which channels are most successful in driving new business? So this isn't not a what column, what pivot table do I need? I'm just generally asking Copilot a question. So it's just going to run through and then just generate an item. It may create a chart for you or might create a report. So it would be good to provide some information. And then it just runs through this item. And you'll notice that this is something I can put straight into an email. It says, for example, our online ads are definitely winning the race. Emails come second. And then you'll notice that just straight off the cuff, you don't have to go into the spreadsheet. It just gives you a nice detailed breakdown just of what you can get out from that sheet across all those years, so you know how to make the best decisions. So maybe another question I could ask, and this is something for those of you who are using Copilot. I don't know if you realize it, but if you ask Copilot to use a persona, for example, act as a marketing manager, what Copilot does is it gives you a more human insight into the data that you're looking at. So, for example, I could say, like, which channels could maybe improve or be removed for maybe my ROI. Sorry about my typing there. Thank goodness I've got autocorrect. By the way, Copilot does use natural language, means that even if I type badly, Copilot will forgive me. Okay, so I'm just going to run that. I'm going to act as a marketing manager. Okay, so you'll notice it'll just run through an item. And what it'll do is it'll just say, well, look, David, as a marketing manager, you should probably invest in emails. And it'll just give me some specific information, and then obviously just going through it, and then other things that I could change for my marketing going forward in the future.
And David, what would then be, which to me would be the next logical step, is to move into agentic AI. How, if we had our own agent, what could the agent do of all of this on its own?
Okay, so if it's feeding off a particular document, like if you're creating an agent, it will use just that document for reference purposes. So, for example, if you have like a policies and standards document, Denise, then perhaps people who are wanting to, maybe they've been onboarded and they need to know what the organization's requirements are, they can just use that. Instead of doing a general search through documents, it'll just focus on just information that you want them to have a look at. So, yeah. Whereas this is using a document that you have selected. So I don't know, perhaps for those of you, so how many of you would find that quite useful, particularly if you knew?
Me.
No, that's great. Okay, fantastic.
I'm just going to go back to sharing, to presenting from my screen again. But I think that what you're saying here, David, is that no matter what you're doing, and whether it's with Excel, but obviously somebody like myself who's always been a fear of Excel, suddenly it does reduce my level of resistance. And in fact, just thank you to you, because now I'm a little bit more excited to have a look at Excel, whereas previously I might have, it looks a bit too much. So my take from that, and I'd be interested to hear what people say in the chat, is that by training, you're definitely reducing the stress levels. You're making sure that people are just feeling a little bit better, and hopefully start pushing now towards more of the agentic AI. So just as we wrap up, but I will stay online, and David as well, to answer any particular questions. But just to say as well that we've said, and I think as part of our wrap up, to say it's not just an IT issue, it's a leadership and a learning issue, and that it's not the people who are going to have the biggest budgets for this, because I don't think it's astronomically expensive, but it's certainly going to make a difference when it comes to the way in which organizations are able to keep pace with the level of change, with the level of complexity. And I think some of you have also said in the chat as well that you can't do it, in one giant leap, but you can certainly start moving it into some of the workflows to create those small wins. Like today, for me, it's a small win. I know now a little bit more about Copilot. I know what it can do, and then it gives me the confidence to try it out in different types of workflows as well. And I'm a big fan of Ethan Mollick. For anyone who's been in previous webinars with us, please look him up. He is really one of the big gurus that I follow. So you can subscribe to his newsletter at no charge. But he does say, just bear in mind that AI it has uneven strengths, and he calls this being at the jagged frontier of AI, because some parts of AI are more advanced than others. Some of them you've still got to question a lot more, verify a lot more, but this is where you need that judgment to know whether the AI is particularly strong in that area, or hey, it's still learning a lot more. So we've all saying, and I think we're saying it so much in the chat, you still got the human judgment. We're not robots yet. But our goal is to do this in a way where it's not just blind automation, but where we can certainly benefit. And I think David made the point, and many of you made the point earlier, it's no good just doing it under pressure. If we do a little bit of the planning and make it a bit more deliberate with the right training, it's going to be much more effective. But we can't, delaying adoption isn't going to put a pause on this. It's one of those things that once it's out in the world, it's going to keep rolling and running along. So as I say, please keep typing more comments. The commentary in this session has been absolutely amazing. So please, everyone, keep an eye on what some of these fabulous people, your colleagues, are saying, because they certainly are giving a lot of valuable input. MCI is running, and David's one of our facilitators, very patiently explaining how you could use Copilot in all of these types of Microsoft applications. So if you do have people who are requiring to learn more, to build their confidence so that they can take it up to the next level, please consider using some of our courses, and we will send you some information as well. And I see Vanessa has put something into the chat. I think I finished exactly on time without my agent telling me so. So please, but we will stay online. Let me stop sharing my screen, and we're very happy to take some questions. And also David will stay here as well.
Indeed. No problem. So guys, just to mention, if you are unsure about AI and particularly Copilot, that first course, Getting Started with Copilot, does not require that you need a paid license. So all you need to be able to do is log in with your work email, and that'll allow you to get your feet wet and actually understand what Copilot can do. So that's really nice. So, and then also just with something Lauren said a little bit earlier. So Lauren, if you hover over your prompt, you can actually save it to the prompt gallery, and you can keep a whole history of your prompts so that you have all your favorite prompts in front of you. So just a small thing you might want to consider as well. So.
It's endless tips, David. It's endless,
Yeah.
endless, because we're all learning, and I don't want this session to be like the definitive answer to all things AI. But I think that it is an ongoing conversation, and we've been very fortunate to have some really very strong commentary in the chat, which I hope people have noticed. I don't know if there is a question that we haven't answered. If someone wants to put on their microphone or just speak to it, that would be interesting. But please just have a look from Lauren. Many people have been putting in very good comments about what's been happening when people have aha moments, like I just had, Lauren, around using some of the power of Copilot, and also what can happen with the Excel. And Excel has never been my best friend, but hey, I think now we could certainly become more friendly. I don't know if there's any other questions here that we haven't answered, but thank you so much to everyone who gave up some of their lunchtime to attend and to really contribute in such a meaningful way to our conversation. And thank you, David, for all your wise words of wisdom and sharing a few great tips with us and showing how the training is possible.
Indeed. Yeah.